Hi friends, it's story time. If you remember, last week we read The Mitten. Do you remember what this book was about? Yeah, Mitten. And this book was about a little boy named Nicky whose grandma knits him a pair of snow white mittens. What happens to Nicky's mittens when he goes out in the snow? Do you remember what happens to his mitten? And what animals crawl inside of the mitten after Nicky loses it? Do you remember what animals? And what happens to the mitten after the animals crawl inside? Do you remember what happens to the mitten? We're gonna find out. So this book is written by Jan Brett, and it's also illustrated by her. So it has the same author and illustrator. Here we go. Once there was a boy named Nicky who wanted his new mittens made from wool as white as, what is this? Snow. Good. At first, his grandmother, Baba, didn't want to knit white mittens. If you drop one in the snow, she warned, you'll never find it. Why do you think that she thinks he won't find it if he drops it in the snow? Yes, because it's white, and so is snow. So it'll camouflage into the snow and it'll be hard to see. But Nicky wanted snow white mittens, and finally Baba made them. So she said, okay, and there she is. She's knitting the mittens with yarn and a needle. After she finished, she said, when you come home, first I will look to see if you are safe and sound, and then I will look to see if you still have your snow white mittens. So off Nicky went, and it wasn't long until one of his new mittens dropped in the snow and was left behind. See how hard it is to see that mitten? See it there? A mole, tired from tunneling along, discovered the mitten and burrowed inside. It was cozy and warm and just the right size, so he decided to stay. See the mole? He sees the mitten and he's going inside. That was the first animal. Oh, I see a clue to the next one. A snowshoe rabbit came hopping by. He stopped for a moment to admire his winter coat. It was then that he saw the mitten, and he wiggled in feet first. So he's wiggling in backwards. The mole didn't think there was room for both of them, but when he saw the rabbit's big kickers, he moved over. So the rabbit's feet were so big, the mole was maybe nervous that he was going to get kicked by the feet. So he moved over before that happened. Look, here's a clue for the next animal that comes along. Next, a hedgehog came snuffling along. Having spent the day looking under wet leaves for things to eat, he decided to move into the mitten and warm himself. The mole and the rabbit were bumped and jostled, but not being ones to argue with someone covered with prickles, they made room. So see the hedgehog's prickles? They wanted to move over before they got poked. As soon as the hedgehog disappeared into the mitten, a big owl, attracted by the commotion, swooped down. When he decided to move in, also the mole, the rabbit, and the hedgehog grumbled. That means they were like, oh, how are we ever going to fit in this mitten together? But when they saw the owl's glinty talons, his claws, they quickly let him in. They were nervous about his claws, so they were like, oh, we better move over. Up through the snow appeared a badger. He eyed the mitten and began to climb in. The mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, and the owl were not pleased. There was no room left, but when they saw his diggers, they gave him the thumb. They gave him the thumb of the mitten. It's the part where you put your thumb in there. Oh, do Do you see a clue of what's coming next? It started snowing, but the animals were snug in the mitten. A waft of warm steam rose in the air, and a fox trotting by stopped to investigate. He wanted to see what was going on with this mitten. Just the sight of the cozy mitten made him feel drowsy. That means he was sleepy. The fox poked his muzzle in. When the mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, the owl, and the badger saw his shiny teeth, they gave the fox lots of room. So they moved over a lot so that the fox could come in. Look how big the mitten's getting. A great big bear lumbered by. He spied the mitten all plumped up. Not being one to want to be left out in the cold, he began to nose his way in. So he's going in with his nose to see what's inside. The animals were packed in as tightly as could be. But what animal would argue with a bear? Would you argue with a bear? I wouldn't argue with a bear. The mitten swelled and stretched. It was pulled and bulged too many times its size. But Baba's good knitting held fast. So Baba did a really good job knitting that mitten because it's not ripping, it's just stretching. It's held together really tight with the threads. See what's coming next? Along came a meadow mouse. Look, there he is. No bigger than an acorn, she wriggled into the one space left and made herself comfortable on top of the great bear's nose. The bear, tickled by the mouse's whiskers, gave an enormous, do you remember? Sneeze! Ha, ha, choo! The force of the sneeze shot the mitten up into the sky and scattered the animals in all directions. So what happened to make the animals all scatter and come out of the mitten? The bear sneezed, and it was with such force that the mittens must have slipped off of all the animals. It was stretched to its max. On his way home, Nicky saw a white shape in the distance. It was a lost mitten silhouette against the blue sky. So a silhouette means he could see the outline of the mitten against the blue sky, because now it wasn't in the snow, it was up in the air. As he ran to catch the snow-white mitten, he saw Baba's face in the window. First, she looked to see if he was safe and sound, and then she saw that he still had his new mittens. Just in time, he found that mitten. So Baba saw him, and she saw that he had it. But look, Baba's looking at the mittens, and she's looking confused. Do you see? This one is still the same as when she first knitted it, but this one is what? This one is bigger. Why do you think it's bigger? Yeah, because all of the animals were squeezed inside and it stretched out. It stretched out and it went back to its shape a little bit, but it was still stretched from all of those animals trying to fit inside. And she's looking confused. Okay, friends. I hope you enjoyed this book. We'll see you soon. Bye.